I can see the whole board.
The whole board. Okay. So we had somatic neural pathway, and somatic means skeletal muscle. So you've got the somatic neural pathway, and it's a one neuron pathway. So you've got your one neuron. Okay. And do you remember what kind of neuron that is? Motor neuron. Since you're here, I'm going to ask you quick. That's the only thing. And we talked about its origin. Remember, is going to be in the spinal cord. And then its insertion is going to be on what?
The muscle.
Yep, skeletal muscle. And we even talked about how that junction right there is called the neuromuscular junction. Which again, with those two things, I don't think I would test you on motor neuron or neuromuscular junction, but I may use those terms, and I don't want you to be like, wait, what's she talking about? Is it myelinated or not myelinated?
Myelinated.
Myelinated. I'll draw my myelin in a different color. What's yellow for myelin? And what's its neurotransmitter?
The ACH.
Yep, acetylcholine. ACH. Okay, autonomic nervous system has two different divisions. So somatic is not the same as autonomic. They're different. Autonomic nervous system connects to glands and organs and is involuntary. Somatic is voluntary and only connects to skeletal muscle. The autonomic nervous system has two different divisions. You've got sympathetic and you have parasympathetic. Both of them are two neuron pathways. The length of the respective neurons is different. The name of the first neuron in the two neuron pathway is called the preganglionic, and the second one is called the postganglionic. And they synapse in the periphery of what's called the ganglion, which is in the peripheral nervous system. And they're going to terminate or end or target a gland or organ, which I'm going to draw a heart. Okay, same basic terminology with the parasympathetic. The length is going to be different, but still targeting the gland or organ and still synapsing at the ganglion, which is still going to be a part of the peripheral nervous system. Okay, the preganglionic neuron is always myelinated, and the postganglionic is always not myelinated. The origin is always going to be in the central nervous system, but if you watch both lectures, you'll know that there is a difference there in the exact origin. With the sympathetic, we call it the thoracolumbar because the origin is somewhere in the thoracic or lumbar region. With the parasympathetic, the origin is called the craniosacral because the origin is somewhere in the brain, off the base of the brain, or in the sacral spinal cord. With the neurotransmitters used, the preganglionic neuron is always going to secrete acetylcholine, both for sympathetic and parasympathetic. And the postganglionic sympathetic secretes norepinephrine, and parasympathetic secretes acetylcholine. So the only one to secrete norepinephrine is this one. It's usually easy for students to remember as a postganglionic. It's just not always easy to remember which one is which. So the para has the two A's for the two acetylcholines, so it helps to remember. You also will learn that the relative lengths are different. So sympathetic has the short preganglionic, long postganglionic. Parasympathetic has the long preganglionic, the short postganglionic. The location of the ganglion is also going to be slightly different. For the sympathetic, this creates that chain close to the spinal cord, that sympathetic chain. For the parasympathetic, it's closest to the organ, or the target, which you can also see from the picture. Remember that we also talked about branched versus not branched, so the sympathetic is going to be highly branched. And this is not, the parasympathetic is not going to be heavily branched. It's minimal. Remember, you shall also write somewhere to remind yourself that the sympathetic is heavily branched and it can go in one of 3 different ways. It can form a spinal nerve, it can form a sympathetic nerve, or a splanchnic nerve. Now this branching actually happens over here, but it's way too crowded to write it there. This is not going to be heavily branched, but remember we talked about how you actually have to tell me the specific names of the nerves here for the preganglionic nerves. And so somewhere you may want to kind of write down, you have to know your cranial nerves. You've got 3, I think it's 7, 9, and 10, and what you have to know about those. And then you've got your sacral 2 through 4, and what you have to know about that. So that should at least help you remember almost everything that you need to know from that lecture. There's like maybe 10 definitions that aren't on there.